Okay, this is a tutorial about the long lace cowl. As you can see, I've already done many repeats of the pattern, and I just want to give you a little lesson on how to read your stitches. Okay, so at this point, you can see that I started a new ball here, so we're going to ignore these two strands that are hanging down. Those ends will be woven in later. But what I want to do is show you that I've just completed row 2. So I just purled all the way across row 2. So all of these purls are completed, and here's my working yarn after I have completed this stitch, and this was the purl row. So now I'm going to turn, and now we can look at, actually after we finish row 2, we can look at row 1 more easily. Okay, so in row 1, the first stitch was a purl. You see this purl here? That's the first stitch of row 1. This stitch on my cable, on my needle, was the row 2 that I just finished, and that was purl all the way across. Remember that when you work a purl, when you turn it around and look on the front side, it's going to look like a knit stitch. Okay, so all of these stitches across, they appeared to be knit stitches on the right side of the fabric, but when I worked them, they were purls going across the back. Now I have turned and they look like knits. Okay, so here's the first stitch of row 1, and it is a purl. The second stitch of row 1 was a knit. You can see this stitch right here, this stitch that I'm picking up right there, that is a knit. The third stitch of row 1 was a knit 2 together. Now let's study that. Here is the purl from row 2. Here is the knit 2 together. So when we're looking at that stitch, we're actually looking to see how it manipulated the stitches below it. So see, these are the stitches from row 12 of the pattern repeat before I started row 1. So this is row 12, and then this is row 1. So on row 12, it's an even numbered row, and so it was purl all the way across. So I'm looking at the front side, and so they look like knits. So these were the two knits, the two purls from row 12, which when you work row 1, row 12 has been turned, and so those two purls look like two knits. You see that? Okay, so these two stitches have been manipulated by this stitch from row 1 was a knit 2 together. And you see how it knit this stitch and this stitch? See, these are two different stitches. Here is one of those stitches, and then here's the second stitch. When you do a knit 2 together, remember you come in, let's say I'm going to knit these two stitches together, you come in this way and knit those two stitches together. So that puts the stitch that's on the left on top of the stitch that's on the right. So you see how this happened right here? This stitch that was on the left came on top of the stitch that was on the right. And so that makes a right leaning decrease. Okay, so this is what a knit 2 together looks like right there. That was a knit 2 together. Then in the pattern on row 1, it was a knit 1, yarn over, knit 1. So this was a knit 1. See how it comes out of this stitch? That stitch knitted 1, and then there was a yarn over, which creates this hole, and then there was another knit 1. So there's your knit 1, yarn over, knit 1. The next stitch on row 1 was a slip slip knit. Here is the slip slip knit, and these are the stitches that stitch manipulated. These are the ones from the row below the slip slip knit, and that's where this shows up, because you slipped 1, you slipped 2, knit those together through the back loop, and you end up with a left leaning decrease. You see that left leaning stitch? Here was our right leaning knit 2 together, and here is our left leaning slip slip knit. Then there were 2 knits in a row. Knit 1, knit 1. Then we were back to the beginning of that pattern repeat. Knit 2 together. You see how those 2 stitches are knit together and they're right leaning. Knit 1, yarn over, knit 1. The yarn over gave us that hole. Then there was a slip slip knit. You see that left leaning decrease, and knit 2. And that goes on all the way across that entire row. So you can pick any spot on that row and figure out what that was. Here is the stitch that I'm studying. We know this was a purl. The purl stitches across the back, all they do is hold that pattern that you did on row 1 in place. It's just a get ready to do the next pattern row. So it's just a nice breather row on the back. So you just purl across. And that will give you a stockinette stitch lace pattern, because you're knitting the stitches on the front, or you're doing knit 2 togethers or slip slip knits, which are all knit stitches, okay? That puts the purl bumps on the back side. When you're doing knits, the purl bumps go to the back side. When you're doing purls, the purl bumps show up on the front side. Now, when I talk about front side and back side, that is different than wrong side and right side, okay? Whenever I'm knitting, whatever I'm doing that ends up on the right-hand needle, as I'm doing these pearls end up on the right-hand needle as I complete them. The side that is facing me, I call that the front, okay? That is not the same as the right side. This is the front of the stitch, has the purls. But when I look at the right side of my knitting, which is the public side, this is the side that you're going to show, that you're going to wear towards the outside so people can see, that I call the right side. When I'm working on a pattern row, which will be the odd numbered rows on this pattern, whatever is facing me when I'm doing that row, I call it the front. This is the back, okay? Front, back. In this case, right side, wrong side. When I'm purling, this is the front, because that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm looking at. Front, back, front, back. But in actuality, this is the wrong side and the right side. Okay, That may have been confusing. I hope it wasn't. If it was confusing, don't worry about it. It is not that important. It's just that I want you to know where the bumps lie when you're doing the right side rows. The right side rows where this is showing, the bumps are landing on the back. When you're doing the wrong side rows where you're purling, the pearls land on the front, which is actually the wrong side, okay? So now let's knit row 3. Row 3's instructions, every row starts with a purl. So it's purl 1, and then it's knit 2 together, which creates a right leaning decrease, knit 1, and the instructions then have something in brackets. Yarn over, knit 1, and then it says twice. So we're going to do what was in the brackets 2 times. Yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, knit 1. So let's see what that looks like since you did the knit 2 together. Here was the knit 2 together. There was knit 1, yarn over. See how there's nothing under a yarn over, it's just like a space. Knit 1, yarn over, knit 1. Okay, the next thing is to slip, slip, knit. So here is our slip, slip, knit those 2 stitches together through the back loop. That is your slip, slip, knit. My yarn's tangled up. I'm just trying to get things resituated here. Okay, so I just finished the slip, slip, knit, which is a left leaning decrease. Then the instructions say to knit 2. Here's 1 and 2. So that is the full repeat of the pattern. So next we go back to the beginning. Oops, wait a minute. Totally made a mistake there. I was reading the instructions for row 1 and I did a knit 2, or I should, for row 3 it does not call for a knit 2 after the slip, slip, knit. Okay, so our pattern repeat is knit 2 together, knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, slip, slip, knit. And then you start again with knit 2 together. Knit 2 together, knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, slip, slip, knit. So that was the second repeat. It ended here with a slip, slip, knit. Then the first instruction is knit 2 together. You see how it manipulated 2 stitches together right there. 1, 2, 1, 2 together on this stitch. This was a knit 2 together, knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, slip, slip, knit. So now we're going to repeat that across. So it's knit 2 together, knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, slip, slip, knit. When you have some pattern rows under your needle, like not the first time you're doing the pattern usually, but when you've done a few rows, okay, then you can start to see these diagonal lines on the knitting. So I'm beginning to do a knit two together. Well, you see this diagonal line that's coming up right here? I'm going to do this knit two together, and that will continue that diagonal line that leans to the right because it's a knit two together. So knit two together is the first instruction of the pattern. Then knit one, yarn over, knit one, yarn over, knit one, slip, slip, knit. This slip, slip, knit, oops, let's see, split my yarn there. Okay, so you see this diagonal line that's coming up here? Those are your slip, slip knits. I just did a slip, slip knit there, and that continues that diagonal leaning to the left line. And that ends that part of the pattern. So now we're going to do, let's see, it looks like I really split that yarn. So I'm going to go back in and redo that. So I've got both pieces of the yarn there. There, that's better. Okay, so now I'm going to start again. Knit two together, knit one, yarn over, knit one, yarn over, knit one. And you'll start to kind of compartmentalize or organize the stitches in your mind to little fragments of the pattern. So in my mind, I'm thinking knit two together, knit one, yarn over, knit one, yarn over, knit one. So that's like a section of the pattern in my mind. And then I do a slip, slip, knit, finishes the pattern. The knit two together starts the pattern, and then it's knit one, yarn over, knit one, yarn over, knit one. You see when you're doing that section of the pattern, the knit one, yarn over, knit one, yarn over, knit one, how that center knit one is lining up with that yarn over from the previous row. This is from row one. This is the row one yarn over. These are the row three yarn overs. See how that's making kind of a hole here and then holes on either side of that hole? Okay, let's finish up that pattern with the slip, slip, knit. And the instruction on row three says to repeat that pattern to the last 4 stitches. Woohoo, we've got 4 stitches. And so we're going to follow the instructions to knit 3 and purl 1. Okay, and so now I'm just going to purl across the back side. I'm not going to video that part, and then we'll come back and do row 5.